It's that time when we all take a moment away from work to get refreshed, drawing water out of the wells of salvation. Welcome to lunch.
Oh my Lord, sing hallelujah, people. Oh my Lord, sing to the world. Follow the light, fight the good fight. God knows you're right to get on the righteous road.
Last Wednesday, we brought you practical tips on how we can share our faith. We've got more highlights for today. Previously, we popped along to the Just One conference to understand how people are sharing their faith.
When you've experienced forgiveness, something happens. It liberates us to do something.
That unconditional love that God showed me, I would want to show that to everyone else. It's not by sort of, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's more about apply the things in your life that Christ has set as an example. Apply that and let that speak for itself. So action speaks louder than words. And that's what I truly believe. As a Christian, your action needs to show how you are. And because you're representing Christ, isn't it? You're the face of Christ. So I think that's key.
I normally communicate my faith from my personal experience with the Lord, and I always tell people, show people the love of Christ, especially the people that are non-believers, especially the people that are also skeptical. I show them the love of Christ and tell them whatever you have done in the past, Jesus has paid it all. So you have been forgiven, and the faith that I have through what I have experienced, I show them that this is what I've been through, and Jesus took me out of it. So just believe in Him, give your life to Him, and they will give you the eternal life.
Well, witnessing to people, on either one-to-one or from the church, with a group of believers as well.
But you talk to them. You show them that you're real, you're authentic, and that what you say have integrity.
One thing I found very useful is to invite them to things such as Just One. I always think that it's very important to tell them your testimony, because that brings a lot of freedom and that brings a lot of salvation. So I would say tell them your story. Many a times we can say, the name Jesus, and many people do say Jesus' name, whether it be in vain or, of a significance. But I'd say use that name as a foothold to start saying, wow, you've said Jesus, okay, surely He must be on your mind. Is there something that you want to know about Him? And I'd probably say asking those important questions, because when we ask those questions, we already know what the answer might be, and we just want to hear their perspective. So I think being open, coming to a level where we've also, come to a point where our lives weren't the same, and our lives were much more different to how it is now. So telling them our testimonies.
The best way to go about it is to take a step of faith. Pray about it. Do something you couldn't do. When you go to work or you go to school, that person you've been thinking of sharing a testimony with, share it with them. Because people these days want to see things before they believe. If you have a testimony to share it, and that testimony will bring them closer to God, and you win a soul for God.
One tip is making sure that you are led by the Spirit of God. A lot of times I feel like we just get up and, say, oh, let me go and speak to this person. Ask God, what do you want me to say to this person? And we should step out in boldness and do that. And also live what we are saying, because a lot of times if we're not living it, it's hard for us to proclaim it and speak it.
Just keep it simple. I mean, today's event really taught me that we don't have to overcomplicate things with a message. Just keep it simple. Make it easy for people to understand. People who don't know God, or perhaps trying to find God. Yeah, just keep it simple.
It's about loving people rather than hitting them over the head with a Bible.
Read the Bible, pray, and thanksgiving. Always give thanks for everything. Everything good that happens in life. Just give thanks and pray.
So the more time we spend with God in our quiet times, in our secret places, the more we'll start to reflect Him publicly without even knowing, and we'll be more intentional about the things we do for God.
Where I volunteer, the manager has given me the base. Anyone needing any, pastoral care, prayer, I'm being called, there are people with cancer healed because they came and we prayed and something happened. I do it on the street, on the bus, even when I've been embarrassed, but some people say, leave me alone.
There are lots of people out there who just don't believe, they've lost hope. And for you, if you go out there and just give them hope, just let them know that there is hope. And especially the young people, because I believe a lot of the challenges that's happening is that they've lost hope.
We've got this commandment to go into all the world and preach the gospel. But how easy is it to preach the gospel in this day and age?
Easy. Everybody in the world is ready to hear it. I know Christians right now listening to us will go, that's not true. It's hard to do it in my area. So let me ask you a question. Is God's word called the truth?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. He says it's the truth. Jesus said, I am the truth. So he can't lie. He has to be telling the truth. But sometimes what he says, which is the truth, doesn't seem to fit what our experience tells us. Yeah, but our experience isn't the truth. Our experience is the facts. The facts are altered by the truth. Jesus said to the disciples, the world is white unto harvest. Go therefore and preach the gospel. Well, if he said it's white, it must be white. If he said it's ready to harvest, it must be ready to harvest.
It is indeed.
It can't be anything other than what he says. But the facts may be, I come from a nation or a country or a town that seems to be hard. Yeah, but that's my perception. So I need to change my perception to match his perception. He says the people around me are ready and willing to hear the gospel.
Well, I like that. So it's not about the people, it's about us.
It's about us. Absolutely.
So if I change my perception and I go out there and preach, people are going to run to Christ.
Yeah, because it's according to faith. Everything God does is according to faith. And I have never had a problem. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody I've ever talked to has accepted Jesus. But I would say 90% of the people I've talked to have accepted Jesus. I have found unsaved people in a conversation start the conversation about God. I haven't said a word. I've never said a word about being a Christian. I haven't said I'm a minister. They start the conversation. I can go into a hairdresser's and start to have a haircut, and they start talking. They say always the same thing. So what do you do for a living? And I'll say, oh, I'm a Christian minister. I preach the gospel of Jesus all over the world. And instantly they start talking. Instantly they open up about their life. So many of them have opened up about spiritualism, about tarot cards and being to palm readers, and they start telling me their life story. Before you know where you are, you're telling them the truth. You're sharing. They are ready. They are open to hear the gospel. It might take them a few opportunities before they accept Christ, but they're open to it. If I believe it's white, I'm going to believe every day, wherever I am, somebody's going to talk to me about Jesus, and somebody's going to start a conversation that opens the door, because he is preparing the event for me to walk into. He's opening the doors. I'm just walking towards those people. He's creating the atmosphere. He's creating the opportunity, as long as I take the initiative.
I mean, that's quite refreshing. So, because God has said do it, so just do it.
Absolutely. I've gone to visit people that I have done. Sometimes I've been involved in a business venture, or I've been involved in, even the political scene has asked me to get involved in something. And I can remember one day just going to visit this lady who I had to do some work with the local council. She was a councillor. And she would, every time I came to visit her, she would leave her shop and make an excuse to go and see somebody, and hoping that when she came back 10 minutes later, I'd be gone. But I'd still stay there. And I knew what she was doing. So I just waited for the opportunity till one day, about 6 weeks later, I came to the shop, and she had her head in her chin in her hands like this, looking over the counter of her sweet shop. I said, what's the matter? She said, I'm just looking at all these young people, all these resources, all these millions of pounds, all these things that we can do, and yet look, they look like they're totally lost and we're not reaching them or helping them. And I knew at that moment she was ready. Amen. And I talked to her about Jesus, and she came to the Lord. Jesus said, I will make you fishers of men. Well, I don't know any fisherman in the entire world that would stay at home and wait for the fish to come. Because the fish are in the river, they're in the lake, they're in the ocean. So the fisherman goes to where the fish are. The fish only eat at certain times. So the fisherman goes at the time the fish determined to eat. Otherwise there's no point in him putting the bait in the water. No fish is going to bite it. And he uses the bait that will make the fish bite. He doesn't tell the fish what to eat. He puts it on the end of the rod, on the hook, he knows the fish will bite. And he dresses it a certain way, so everything is conditioned by the fish. If only the church would understand that. Instead of wanting the world to come into a church building that doesn't look like anything they go to sing songs that's not relevant to them, they don't understand the language, to go through some sort of meeting that really is awkward for them, when the church could dress like them, go to where they are, start fishing when they're hungry, using the bait that will make them bite, and sometimes even dressing in a way that doesn't spook them. And sometimes, you know, when you're trying to reach punks, you've got to look like a punk. And when you're trying to reach a certain gender of people, you've got to look like them. You've got to make yourself acceptable to them, but they are ready to hear it. So don't put any barriers in the way.
Wayne, thank you so much for chatting with us today. And thank you for watching. How have you been communicating your faith? Please share your experience, tips and questions, and Wayne would only be too pleased to respond. And by the way, please don't forget to like our Facebook page and turn on your notification. And we shall see you tomorrow.